Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Who doesn't love a good hoodie? The inspiration for this design can best be described as layered. I wanted it to look like when you stack two things on top of one another, and I think I accomplished it. The brief outside layer of Alpine that flows to the hoodie and side panels is a small detail, but looks pretty snazzy if I do say so myself. And if you think so too, be sure to let me know in the comments. I'm always down there chatting and hanging out, so come say hi. Now, before we get on with the show, please do me a huge favor and click that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. It's one of the easiest ways you can support the channel and keep this operation going. Speaking of, I'm ready for surgery, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 490 grams of yarn, and that's 700 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5 and 5.5 millimeter hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by commenting the last movie you saw in theaters. The last one for me was Finding Dory, so I could go for a flick. Details down below. Using 6 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and double treble crochet. This tutorial is for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're going to grab our 5 millimeter hook, and we're all going to start off with our cable stitch section, so make a chain of 8. And now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain. Chain 2, that counts as our turning chain, not as a stitch. We're going to yarn over, and then insert our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or that third chain from our hook, with a half double crochet. Let's do the next one together. Yarn over, insert your hook into that next chain, pull through, yarn over, and pull through 3. Continue to put 1 half double crochet into every chain. Now that we have our first half double crochet row, we're actually going to do one more. So start with the chain 2, flip our work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Now that we have our 2 half double crochet rows, we're going to get started on our third row, or our first cable stitch row. So what we're going to do is start with a chain 2 and flip our work. Now we're going to start working into our first half double crochet row, and the first stitch we're going to do is a front post treble crochet. We're always going to start and end with our front post treble crochets, and that's what we're going to be calling pillars for video sake. So what we're going to do is yarn over twice. Taking a look at our row number 1, we're going to insert our hook into that first half double crochet stitch, not counting that chain 2. So from here, I'm going to insert my hook behind the body of that first half double crochet. We're going to yarn over, pull through. From here, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now our first front post treble crochet is all finished. Now for the cable stitch section, they're going to be worked in sets of 2. And we're going to start with a set of 2 front post double treble crochets. So how we do that is yarn over 1, 2, 3 times. From here, we're going to skip over the next 2 half double crochets and then put 1 front post double treble crochet into each of the next 2. So we're going to skip 1, skip 2, then insert your hook into that next one, yarn over, and pull through. We're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through 2. That is our first front post double treble crochet, so let's do the next one into that next stitch. Yarn over 1, 2, 3 times. Into that next stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now that we have those 2 done, we're now going to work back into those 2 stitches that we skipped, putting 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those. So start again with a yarn over of 3, and then into that first half double crochet from our row 1, go ahead and insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2, and then once more into that skip stitch, so yarn over 1, 2, 3 times. Insert, yarn over, and pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, 2, and then 2. Now we should have a total of 3 stitches left into our first half double crochet row. Into the third and second to last, we're going to do 1 front post treble crochet into each. So yarn over twice, into that third to last stitch, insert your hook, pull through 2, 2, and 2, and then 1 more into that second to last, so yarn over twice, insert your hook, pull through 2, 2, and 2. Now once we have that, like I said, we're always going to end and start with a front post treble crochet, but along the end we're going to have to combine it with a half double crochet so that it's nice and secure. So start off with a yarn over of 2. Into that last stitch from our row number 1, insert your hook, pull through. We should have 4 loops on our hook, so we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 2 loops left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now that we have 2 loops, we're going to yarn over and then insert our hook into that last stitch from our previous row. So go ahead and insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through. We should now have a total of 4 loops on our hook. So yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops. And now that we have that, our row number 3 is all finished. So what we're going to do from here is chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, making it all the way back down. And then I'll meet you guys back to get started on row number 5. We've just made our way back, putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch. This is our row number 4. Now we're going to get started on our row number 5. So start with a chain 2. There's 1, there's 2, and flip our work. Now we're always going to start with a front post treble crochet. So we're going to insert that into that first stitch from our previous cable stitch row. We're going to be skipping over our row number 4. Yarn over twice, then we're going to insert our hook underneath that first front post treble crochet. So insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Now once we have that, we're going to put 1 front post treble crochet into the next 2 stitches into our cable stitch section. So yarn over twice, into that next stitch, insert your hook behind that post, pull through 2, 2, 2, and then underneath that second one as well. Yarn over twice, insert, pull through 2, 2, and 2. Now once we have our first 2 cable stitches, we're going to do another set of front post double treble crochets, skipping over the next 2 stitches. So yarn over 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip 1 and 2 and insert your hook underneath that next stitch, pull through. We're going to pull through 2, 2, 2, and 2, and then once more into that next stitch. So yarn over 3 times, insert your hook, and pull through. Pull through 2, 2, 2, and 2. Now once we have that, we're going to do another set of 2 front post double treble crochets into that window that we just made. So start with a yarn over of 3. We're going to hang on to our yarn because it can very easily fall off. And we're going to pull our work down to try and find these 2 stitches in this window. So we're going to pull our work, and then we're going to find our 2 skip stitches. This is my first, and this is my second. Into that first one, go ahead and bring your hook back underneath that stitch, yarn over, and pull through. And then from here, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. That's what the first crossover is going to look like. Let's do one more into that last stitch. So yarn over 1, 2, 3 times. Hang on to your yarn and bring your work down. We're going to find that last stitch, which is this one right here. Insert your hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, 2, and 2. Now that's what our cables look like. Now we're going to have to close it off with our pillar, and that's going to be a front post treble crochet combined with a half double crochet. So start with a yarn over of 2. Into that last stitch from our previous cable stitch row, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Once we have 2 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that last stitch from our previous row, pull through. Should have 4 loops on our hook, so yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops. Now our row number 5 is all finished for our cable stitch section, and we need to make our way back. So starting our row number 6, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. And we have half double crocheted all the way back down, finishing up our row number 6. From here, we're going to repeat rows number 3 through 6 until we get the length that we want, making sure that this first row is placed at the base of our neck. So I'm just going to get this next row started off with you guys, which is going to be a repeat of row number 3 or our first cable stitch row. Start with a chain 2 and flip our work. We're always going to start with a front post treble crochet into the previous cable stitch row, so yarn over twice, insert your hook, pull through 2, 2, and 2. Now, a repeat of our row number 3 is going to start with a set of 2 front post double treble crochets into the 3rd and 4th stitch. So we're skipping over 1 and 2. Yarn over 3 times, skipping over 2 stitches, insert your first front post double treble crochet, and then into that next stitch, our next front post double treble crochet, and then from here working into those 2 stitches that we skipped, 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those, and then once more into the next. And then to close off this cable stitch section, put 1 front post treble crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and then our last stitch is always going to be our pillar, which is a front post treble crochet combined with a half double. Half double crochet all the way back down once we have that row all finished up, and then do a repeat of our row number 5. If you guys need a refresher on how to do any of these rows, all of those timestamps will be in the description. But I will meet you guys back to let you guys know how many rows I have and then how to do our next section from there. Alright, so I'm back with my cable stitch section. I have a total of 35 rows, and this is roughly 12 inches or 30 centimeters. And now we're going to start working on our side panel. So we are first going to switch out to our 5.5mm hook. And now that we're at this corner, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet along the side of our cable stitch section. And we're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side half double crochet row. So let's get that started. Now, this is my first side half double crochet row right here, this little slit. I'm going to insert my hook into there with just 1 single crochet. This is my next side half double crochet row. I'm going to insert my hook into there with 2. So there's 1, and then there's 2. My next side half double crochet row is this one right here. So I'm going to insert with 1, and then this is my next side half double crochet. So I'm going to insert into there with 1, and then 2. We're going to keep doing this, making our way all the way down. Alright, so now that we have made our way down with our single crochet row, we're now going to do our back loop slip stitches. For this next row, we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way all the way up until we have 2 stitches left, and we're going to leave those 2 blank. So from here, what we're going to do is chain 1 and flip our work. Now into those first stitches, back loop, we're going to insert our hook. We should have 2 loops on our hook, so we're going to yarn over and pull through everything on our hook just like that. Let's do the next one. Into that next back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. Next back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. Continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of this row, remembering that we are going to leave the last 2. Right, so I've made my way all the way down with my back loop slip stitch row. As you guys can see, I have left 2 stitches at the very end. We're going to leave this 2 and do our next back loop slip stitch row. So all we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, and then continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. When we reach the end of this row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then I'll meet you guys back at the end of this next row to show you how we're going to increase. Alright, so from where we left off, we have made our way all the way down, did a chain up of 1, flipped our work, and then made our way all the way back up to the end where we have our 2 skip stitches. Now along this end, we're always going to do an increase when we're working our way up. So how we're going to do that is chain 2 and then flip our work. Now the chain that's closest to our hook is going to count as our turning chain, not as a stitch. Our first stitch count is going to start into that second chain that we made. So skip this first one, insert your hook into that second chain from our hook's back loop with a slip stitch. And then from here, we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way all the way down. When we reach the end of this row, do a chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again. And then we'll make our way back up to this increased side. So chain 2, flip our work, do your first slip stitch into that second chain from our hook, just like we did, and then make our way back down. And we're going to alternate between those 2 rows until this point reaches the middle of our breast. But we want to make sure that we're stretching it as if we're wearing it. And I'll meet you guys back along the top. Alright, so I am back, and I have made my way all the way over to mid-breast. We have ended along the top, and from here we're going to make a chain that reaches up to our shoulder. But just to let you guys know before we get started with the rest, from our first single crochet row all the way down to where I have my last row, which I have a total of 12 by the way, I have 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters, and that is unstretched. But once we reach this point, I'm going to start off by making that chain. And for me, that chain is about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 8. And once we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain of 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So go ahead and insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through everything. Continue to put 1 slip stitch into every chain, and then once we reach the body portion, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way all the way back down. When we reach the end of this row, we're going to do a chain 1, flip our work, and then continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way all the way up with no increases and no decreases. And we're going to keep going back and forth like this until we get a shoulder portion that we want. Now I want mine to be super thin, so I'll be right back with you guys, but we do want to make sure that we end along the bottom. Alright, so I'm back with my super tiny shoulder portion. From here, I just added 3 rows, so I now have a total of 15, and my total width unstretched is just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. From here, we're going to start working on our underarm, but it's going to be super tiny because we will have an alpine stitch detail along the inside of our underarm as well. So the first thing we're going to do is place this up on ourselves, and then we're going to insert our stitch marker right where we want our underarm to be, keeping in mind that we will have a little bit of space to take up for our detail. So from the bottom, I've inserted my stitch marker into the 30th stitch, and that's 6.5 inches or 16 centimeters from the bottom. And we do want to make sure that they are in multiples of 3. Now, once we have this, we're going to chain 1, flip our work. And then from here, we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch until we are 1 stitch right before our stitch marker. All right, and now that we are 1 stitch right before our stitch marker, we're going to do a decrease into those 2. So into that next stitch, insert your hook into that back loop, yarn over, pull through, and then also into that back loop that our stitch marker's in. We should have 3 loops on our hook now, so from here all we're going to do is yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. From here, do a chain 1, flip our work, and then we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, but we are going to start with a decrease as well. So into that next back loop, insert your hook, pull through, into that next back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything. Now put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way all the way down. And when we reach the end of this row, do a chain 1, flip our work, 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way all the way up, decreasing into the last 2 stitches. And we're going to keep repeating those 2 rows until this can stretch over to our underarm, leaving at least 2 inches for our underarm portion, where there's going to be our Alpine stitch detail. But you can leave that as wide or as little as you guys want. We just want to make sure that this underarm portion is ending on a multiple of 3 amount of stitches. Go ahead and get that done. Do a chain of a 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back. All right, so I'm back and my underarm portion is all finished. I now have a total of 18 rows, and my total width is 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters unstretched. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now right here, we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and it's going to be an exact repeat, so I'm just going to show you guys where we're going to insert our hook. So, the way that we can tell where to insert our hook is into the end where the shoulder portion is, or opposite of our tail end. So since my tail end's on this side, I'm going to insert my hook into this top corner right here, and then continue with our single crochet row, our slip stitches, our shoulder portion, our same underarm portion, do a chain up, 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I am back and the entirety of my front panel is all finished. And just to let you guys know, my total width is about 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters, and that is unstretched. So we're now going to set this off to the side and we're going to get started on your back panel. So go ahead and make a slip knot. Insert your yarn onto your hook. And from here, we're going to start by making a chain the same amount of stitches that we have for our last shoulder row. So from this point, going all the way down to the bottom. I have a total of 62 stitches, so I'm going to make a chain of 62. And now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain of 1. Into that chain that we blocked off for our second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. And all we're going to do from here is put 1 slip stitch into every chain. A really quick tip, our chain is probably going to be longer than the length that we have from this corner all the way down, but that's fine, it'll shrink up when we go in with our slip stitch rows. But all we're going to do from here is put 1 slip stitch into every chain. We reach the end of this row, do a chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch for the same amount of rows that we have for our shoulder. So since I have a super tiny shoulder portion, I only have 3 rows. I'll meet you guys back when I have 3 rows of this, and then we can work on our next scoop. Alright, now that I have the same amount of rows as my shoulder portion, what we're going to do from here is do 1 row of back loop slip stitches, working our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker. Now we're going to place our stitch marker right where we want the back of the next scoop to be. Now this doesn't have to be too big, we just want to make sure that the detail has enough space to curve around our neck. So all I did was inserted my stitch marker into the 5th stitch from this end, and that's just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters. So go ahead and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch until we reach our stitch marker, then I'll meet you guys back. And now that we've put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch all the way up to our stitch marker, all we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, and then make your way down, putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And we're going to keep going back and forth with rows like that, with no increases and no decreases, until we have the same amount of rows from this first row along the inside of our shoulder to this last row along the inside of our shoulder as well. also counting the 8 stitches that we have for our cable stitch detail. Now if you have to add or subtract a row just to make sure that we end along the top so that we can make a chain for our shoulder portion, that's completely fine. Go ahead and just get that finished up and I'll meet you guys back. Okay, so I'm back with the next loop portion of my bag. And my width is 4.5 inches or 12 centimeters unstretched. So what we're going to do from here is another shoulder portion. We're going to start by making a chain of the same amount of stitches that we skipped over here. So since I skipped 5 stitches, I'm going to make a chain of 5. And now that I have my chain, I'm going to block off my last chain, do a chain 1, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, go ahead and insert with a slip stitch. Put 1 slip stitch into every chain, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way all the way down. And then from there, we're going to do a chain 1 flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way all the way up. We're going to repeat our back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases until we have the same amount of rows as our other shoulder portion. Then I'll meet you guys back to work on one of our underarm portions. We'll do a chain of 1 and cut, and then we'll do the other underarm portion together. Alright, so my second shoulder portion is all finished. We all should have ended along the bottom, and now what we're going to do from here is do our underarm portion. But this underarm portion is actually going to be the same exact one that we did for the front panel, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. We're going to start by inserting our stitch marker into that same stitch that we inserted our front panel stitch marker into, which for me it was a 30th stitch from the bottom. And then from here we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, decreasing into that stitch that is right before our stitch marker and into that stitch marker stitch. Once we have that row, do a chain 1, flip our work, start with a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way down. Keep repeating those 2 rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows as our front panel. Do a chain of 1 and cut, and the other side is going to be the same, so I'm going to talk you guys through that one more time once we have this side all finished. Okay, so I have just finished up my underarm portion along one side, and our back panel is almost finished. We just need to do the other underarm portion. So start by inserting our hook into the same amount of stitches that we inserted the side stitch marker into, and then do our back loop slip stitches while doing a decrease into that last and stitch with our stitch marker in it. Chain 1, start with a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way down. Basically a repeat of what we just did over here. We just want to make sure that we're inserting our hook into the blunt sides bottom corner. Go ahead and repeat, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can do the rest of our piece. Hey y'all, so I am back and I have just finished my second underarm portion. I did do a chain of 1 and cut, and we are now all done. Don't worry if this looks a little small. This is all going to come together once we add our underarms, which is going to be not the next thing that we do, but the thing right after we seam our shoulders together. So from here, go ahead and grab your front panel. Then all we're going to do is sandwich the shoulder corners together, and then we're going to seam it. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that our cable stitch is faced downward on top of our back panel, because we want the seam to be on the inside. Go ahead and insert your hook into the corner stitch of the front panel, and then into the corner stitch of the back panel as well. Now go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. This may be a little bit tricky, but if you guys need to, go ahead and separate your work a little bit. But we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, going into both the front and back panel at the same time. So let's find our first one. My first side slip stitch row is this divot right here. So I'm going to find that top loop. There isn't going to be a pretty one, so we have to find one into there. And same thing into the back panel. So this is my first side slip stitch row. It is also a divot. Insert your hook and then single crochet. Let's do 1 more. My next side slip stitch row is this raised one right here. So I'm going to find that top loop, insert my hook into there, maybe a little tough, and then into that same side slip stitch row into the back panel, insert your hook and single crochet. Now we're going to keep doing this until we don't have any more stitches left. Do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then we're going to do the same thing that we just did here on the other side. Alright, so now that our shoulders are seamed, we're now going to start working on our Alpine stitch. underarm portion. I already have this side all finished up, so let's do the other side together. So we're all going to start by trying on our piece, and we're going to need to figure out just how wide we need this underarm portion to be. If you guys have my numbers, I made mine just about 2 inches wide, and that's about 5 centimeters. But if you guys need a wider one, that's completely fine. Just make sure that when you're measuring it on yourself, you're stretching it as if you're wearing it. But once we have figured out how long we need ours to be, we're going to continue with our 5.5 millimeter hook and make an even numbered chain of that length. So I'm going to make a chain of 8. So now that I have my chain, I'm going to block off my last chain, do a chain of 2. That counts as our turning chain, not as a stitch. We're going to yarn over, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a half double crochet, and then we're going to continue to put 1 half double crochet into every chain. We reach the end of this row. To get started on our row number 2, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch again, kind of like how we started off with our cable stitch detail. I'll meet you guys back once we have those first 2 rows finished. And now that we have our 2 half double crochet rows finished, we're now going to get started on our 3rd row, or our first alpine stitch row. So start with a chain 2, flip our work. Now we're going to be working into that first half double crochet row. So what we're going to do is yarn over once, then into that first half double crochet, not counting that chain 2, we're going to do a front post double crochet. So insert your hook behind that half double, yarn over, pull through. From here, we're going to pull nice and tall to get the same height as our chain 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now we're going to do a half double crochet, inserting it into the top stitches from our previous row. But we do need to skip 1 stitch because this front post double crochet counts as this stitch. So skip 1, then half double crochet into the next. And that's it. This is going to be a repeat, making our way all the way down. So let's do the next one. Yarn over once. We're going to skip 1 half double crochet from our first row because this half double crochet counts as this one. And then skip 1 over. Insert your hook. Pull through. Pull up nice and tall. Pull through 2. Pull through 2. And then a half double. So yarn over once. Skip 1 stitch. Half double crochet into the next. Keep doing this until we don't have any more stitches left. At the end of this row, do a chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. And then I'll meet you guys back so that we can get started on our row number 5 of our alpine stitch section. Right, we have just put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, finishing off our row number 4. So let's get started on our row number 5, or our second alpine stitch row. So from here, we're all going to do a chain 2. Flip your work, and since our alpine stitches needs to be staggered, since we started with a front post double crochet, we're going to start our next row with a half double crochet. So yarn over, half double crochet into that first stitch. Now we're going to do our next front post double crochet. So yarn over, and then insert your hook behind the half double crochet from our previous alpine stitch row. Insert your hook, pull through. We are still pulling nice and tall. Pull through 2, pull through 2. Let's do one more set. Yarn over, skip 1 stitch, half double crochet into the next, yarn over, and then front post double crochet into the next half double. Keep repeating our half double and front post double crochet until we are at our last front post double crochet, because that is going to be combined with a half double crochet. All right, so I've made my way all the way down. I have just one more set to do, which is 1 half double and then a front post double crochet, but that needs to be combined with a half double, so let's do that. I'm going to yarn over, skip 1 stitch, half double crochet into the next, and then to close this off, we're going to yarn over once. Into that last stitch from our previous alpine stitch row, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. We're still going to pull nice and tall, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now since we only have these 2 loops left on our hook, we're going to yarn over, and then insert your hook into that last stitch from our previous row, pull through. We should have 4 loops on our hook now, so yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops. And then from here, you guys know the drill, do a chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. We're going to keep repeating rows 3 through 6 until we have the total amount of rows for our underarm. Now, to determine the amount of rows, go ahead and take the total number of underarm stitches and divide that by 3. Take that answer and add it to itself, and then whatever that number is the amount of rows that you'll do for your underarm portion. So for an example, I ended up having a total of 27 underarm stitches. I divided that by 3, which is 9, and I added 9 plus 9, and that's 18. So I ended up doing a total of 18 rows. I'll meet you guys back once we have this portion all finished up so that we can seam them together. Back with all of the Alpine rows that I need for my underarm portion. Right before we seam it to the body, we're going to have to single crochet along the edges so we can clean it up, making it a little bit easier for us to seam. So we're going to start with a chain 1 and then working down the length. We're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side half double. So let's do the first one. This is my first side half double crochet row right here. Insert your hook with 1. This is my next side half double crochet row. And now we're going to insert with 2. And we're going to keep doing this, making our way all the way down. We reach this corner, do a chain of 1 and cut, and then do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll meet you back so that we can seam our pieces together. Single crochet along the sides of our Alpine stitch section is all done, and now we're going to seam it to the body. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is take our Alpine stitch section, and just to make sure that our seam is going to be on the inside, make sure that it's flipped down towards our collar, so that once we flip it right side out, the seam will be along the inside. So from here, I'm going to place this side that my hook is attached to against this underarm portion. I'm going to insert my hook into this corner stitch, yarn over and pull through everything. Now we're going to do a single crochet seam. So inserting your hook into that first stitch into the front panel, insert your hook, and then inserting your hook into that next stitch into the back panel, insert, and then single crochet. Let's do one more together. Insert your hook into that next available stitch into the front panel, and then into that next available stitch into the back panel, and then single crochet. Now we're going to keep doing this all the way up until we don't have any more stitches left to go into. Do a chain of 1 and cut, and then we're going to seam the other side and then repeat everything that we did here on this other underarm portion as well. So our underarm portion with our Alpine stitch detail is all finished. And right before we get started on the up and over cap portion, we're going to do the collar. So right now we're going to switch back out to our 5mm hook, and we're going to start by single crocheting along the entirety of our collar that we have. So we did leave these 2 stitches along the edge of our cable stitch section. We're going to insert our hook into that second stitch in, so the one that's closest to the body portion. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook and pull through. From here, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, so let's get that started. This is my first side slip stitch row that I have right here, which is this raised one, so I'm going to insert my hook into that top loop and then single crochet. Alright, so this is my next side slip stitch, which is this divot. Insert your hook into that top loop, single crochet. And I'm going to keep doing that, making my way all the way up and around. Go ahead and slip stitch it into that stitch that we have into the cable stitch section. Do a chain of 1 and cut, then I'll meet you guys back. And now that we have finished up with our single crochet, we can continue on with our collar. The first thing we're going to do is insert our stitch marker into the middle stitch that we have. If you guys have my numbers, I've inserted my stitch marker into the 41st stitch. And then from here, we're going to want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, cable towards us, the collar faced away from us. And we're all going to get started on the left side together. So we're going to grab our 5mm hook. We're going to insert our hook into that last stitch that we have into this cable stitch section. Insert your yarn onto your hook and pull through. From here, we're all going to do a chain 2 that doesn't count as a stitch. We just want the height. And we're all going to do an increase of 3 into that same stitch the chain 2 is in. So yarn over, insert your hook with a half double crochet. Pull through 3. There's 1 because we're now counting our chain 2 into that same stitch. there's 2, and then into that same stitch, there is 3. We're now going to connect it into the base. So we're going to count up 1, 2 available stitches, and then slip stitch it into that stitch. And in order to work our way up to the next row, we're only going to slip stitch up 1 stitch, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. And since we did an increase of 3, we should have 3 half double crochets. So there's 1, there's 2, and then there's 3. Chain 2 and flip our work. Now we're ready to get started on our Alpine stitch section. So just like before, we're all going to be working into our row number 1, and we're going to start with 1 front post double crochet. So yarn over, and then into that first half double crochet from our row number 1, not counting that chain 2, we're going to insert our hook underneath, yarn over, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. That is our first front post double crochet. Now we're going to do a half double, but remember we need to skip 1 stitch from our previous row. So into that next stitch, 1 half double crochet. And then from there, we're going to do 1 more front post double crochet. So yarn over, and then into the last stitch from our row number 1, insert your hook behind there, pull through, pull nice and tall, pull through 2, and we do need to do an increase to make sure that this ends on an even number. So we're going to half double crochet into the last stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch from our previous row, and then half double crochet. And that's what it should look like. We're now going to slip stitch it into the base. So we're going to count up 1, 2 stitches, insert your hook into that second stitch with a slip stitch, and in order to work your way up to the next row, which is a half double crochet row, only slip stitch up 1 stitch, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and then there's 4. Do a chain 2 and flip your work. And now on row number 5 is going to be another Alpine stitch row. Since we already know how to do this, I'm just going to blaze through this with you guys. So since the first stitch from our previous Alpine stitch row was a front post double, we're going to have to do a half double crochet. So yarn over into that first stitch with our first half double. Our next is going to be a front post double crochet, working into that half double crochet from our previous Alpine stitch row. And then we have 1 more set to do. So yarn over, skip 1 stitch now since we have enough stitches, half double crochet into the next, and then we're going to close this off with a front post double crochet into the last half double crochet from our previous Alpine stitch row. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, pull nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, slip stitch it into the base. So count up 1, 2 stitches, slip stitch into there, slip stitch into that next stitch, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. From here, we're going to repeat our half double crochet rows and our Alpine stitch rows, making our way all the way around until we reach our stitch marker. Once we reach this point, do a chain up, open, and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back to show you how we can do the other side. Okay, so the left side of my collar is all finished. Now we're going to get started on the right. So this is going to start off a little bit differently because Alpine stitches aren't reversible. So what we're going to do is insert our hook into that second available stitch into the single crochet that we did when we were outlining a collar. So taking a look at this single crochet row, I'm going to count up 1, 2 stitches. Here we go. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through. Now we're going to do our increase of 3 into that last stitch from our cable stitch section right here. So go ahead and yarn over, insert your hook with 3 half double crochets. And now that we have our increase of 3 half double crochets, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, and then insert with 3 half double crochets. All right, and now that we're here, we're now going to connect it into the base. So we're going to start by slip stitching into that next stitch into the base. So just count up 1 and then slip stitch. And to work our way up to the next row, which is our Alpine stitch row, we're going to slip stitch up 1, slip stitch up 2. We're going to flip our work, and just like before, we're going to start with a front post double crochet. So yarn over, working into that first half double crochet row, insert your hook behind that first half double crochet, pull through. Pull nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. You guys know the drill, so prepare for a half double. Skip 1 stitch, half double crochet into the next, and then we have 1 more front post double crochet. That is going to go into the last half double crochet from our row number 1 right here. And then since we need to end on even number, we're going to put 1 half double crochet into that next stitch from our previous row. Just like that. From here, go ahead and chain 2, flip your work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. And now that we've put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, we're going to connect it into the base again. So slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, and slip stitch up the next 2 stitches as well. Flip our work, and then do the opposite stitch from our previous Alpine stitch row. Since we started with a front post double, we're going to start with a half double, 1 front post double into the half double crochet from our previous row, half double crochet. Now that we're at the end, we do need to finish off with our last front post double crochet, but we are going to combine this with a half double crochet. So let's get that started. Yarn over, insert your hook into that last half double crochet from our previous Alpine stitch row. Pull nice and tall, yarn over, pull through 2. Now that we have 2 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that last stitch from our previous row, pull through all 4 loops, and then that is it. Chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. And then just like on the other side, we're going to repeat our Alpine stitch rows with a half double crochet row in between, making our way all the way down to our middle stitch marker along the back. Do a chain up over and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back. We have made our way all the way to the middle of our collar, and now we're going to seam the 2 ends that we have together. So we're going to start by making sure that our seam is along the inside. We're going to sandwich the 2 ends together, and we're going to do a single crochet seam. So into that first stitch into the front panel, we're going to insert our hook, and then into that first stitch into the back panel, insert your hook into there as well, and then single crochet. Let's do 1 more. Into that next stitch, into the front panel, and then into the next stitch, into the back panel, and then single crochet. That's it. Keep doing this until we don't have any more stitches left, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so we are back and we are ready to get started on our armhole detail. I already have this side all finished up, so let's get the other side started. We first want to make sure that our cable is flipped right side up, right side out, making sure that the collar is faced away from us. Now this is going to be done the same way, but just to let you guys know, I'm getting started on the left armhole. If you guys are getting started on the right, that's completely fine. Just fold it in a way where you can see the right armhole. Now from here, we're going to insert our hook into one of the middle stitches that we have for our underarm detail. We should have 2 stitches since we made an even number chain. I made a total of 8, so from the left, I'm going to count in 1, 2, 3, 4, then insert my 5.5mm hook into that 4th stitch. I'm going to insert my yarn onto my hook, pull through. I'm going to do a chain 1 just to secure this, but this doesn't count as a stitch. Into that same stitch, we're actually going to insert our first single crochet into there so that we're not missing out on this stitch. So there is 1. We're going to put 1 single crochet into each of the next stitches right before we reach our underarm portion. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and then there's 4. Now when it comes to this portion, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row. So let's find the first one together, and then we're going to have to insert our stitch marker into that stitch. So this is my first side slip stitch row right here, is this divot. going to insert my hook into that first stitch with 1 single crochet. Now we're going to insert our stitch marker into that stitch because once when we go in with the detail, this is going to be where the base starts, and then we're going to single crochet all the way around. So let's just do the next few. I have a couple more side slip stitch rows. I'm going to find that next top loop, insert my hook with 1, and then into my next one with 1. Now from here we have some regular stitches to work into, so put 1 single crochet into every stitch. The only tip I have for you guys is when we reach the shoulder seam, we're going to insert our stitch marker into each of the stitches on either side of the seam, making sure that we have the same amount of stitches on both sides for our detail. But we're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way down. Put 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, inserting your stitch marker into that last one, and then put 1 single crochet into every stitch over our underarm alpine stitch detail section. Then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so my single crochet row is all finished, and now I'm going to start working on one half of the detail. I'm going to start working on the left half, but making sure that our work is flipped right side out. And from here, we're going to start with a chain 2. Now, since we just did a single crochet, we're going to continue on with our alpine stitch row. So my alpine stitch row is actually down here because I have a half double crochet row in between, but that's fine. I'm just going to skip over both my single and half double crochet so we can all start with an alpine stitch row. So if you're looking at your previous alpine stitch row, you're going to do the opposite of that middle stitch. So this is mine. This is my front post double, half double, front post double, half double. I'm going to do a front post double crochet into that stitch because that is my middle stitch. Insert, pull through, pull up, front post double, yarn over, skip 1 stitch, half double, and then continue until we reach our stitch marker, and then we can connect it into the base. Alright, so now that we have done our pattern all the way over to our stitch marker, this stitch marker and up counts as our base, so this is going to be where we're slip stitching into. So with our alpine stitch rows, we're going to count up 2 stitches. So count up this first stitch with our stitch marker in it, and then up the second one, and then insert your hook into that second stitch. And now this is all closed off. Our next row is a half double crochet row, so slip stitch up just 1 stitch, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Now at the end of our half double crochet row, chain 2, flip our work, and we're not doing any increases or decreases, so this is going to be pretty easy for you guys. Do the opposite of our previous alpine stitch row, so I would start with a half double, continue with the set, making our way all the way down. Connect it into the base the same way that we just did, half double crochet back, and we're going to keep repeating those rows all the way up until we reach our stitch marker along the top. We're going to do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll show you guys how to do the other side right after that. Okay, so we have made our way all the way up with one side. We have done a chain up of 1 and cut, and we're now going to do the other side. So this side is going to be started a little bit of a different way, just like how we've done pretty much everything so far. So what we're going to do is insert our hook into the stitch that's right after our stitch marker, because remember when we single crochet down, we inserted our stitch marker into that last single crochet that we did when we were doing our side slip stitch rows. And just to double check, I have 4 stitches that go into this middle section, and here is my 1, 2, 3, and 4. We just want to make sure that our hook is into the second stitch away from that last stitch that we have for our detail section. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook and pull through. Now I can take out the stitch marker now. Now from here, we're going to do the first stitch that we have right here into this detail section, and mine is a half double crochet, so I'm going to do a front post double crochet into there. This may feel a little weird because it is going to be a long stretch. Go ahead and just insert your hook into there. Nice and tall, pull through 2, there we go. Yarn over, skip 1 stitch, half double crochet into the next. Continue on with this row until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. Alright, so I've made my way all the way over to my middle stitch. We're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then half double crochet into every stitch. And now that we have our half double crochets, we're going to slip stitch it into the base. So we're going to insert into that next stitch with 1 slip stitch, and then slip stitch up the next 2 stitches to get started on our alpine stitch row. Flip our work, and then continue on with our next alpine stitch row from there. You guys already know how to do that. So continue on with this side, making our way all the way up. We don't have any more stitches left. I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so we have just made our way all the way up the other side of our detail, and now we're going to seam it together. So we're first going to flip our work inside out. We're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch, yarn over, and pull through everything. So once we have this, we're going to do a single crochet seam. Just do the first one together. We're going to insert your hook into that first stitch into the front panel, then into this first stitch into the back panel, and then single crochet. We're going to keep doing this until we don't have any more stitches left. Do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything that we did here on the other side. Alright, so now both of our sleeve details are all finished up, and now we're going to get started on our hood. So we're going to start by inserting a hook into any one of our side rows that we have along the collar that we just made, and then we're going to single crochet all around. So I already have my hook inserted, and insert my yarn onto my hook, pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure, and from here we're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochet into every side half double crochet. So let's do the first one. Yours may be a little bit different, but my first side half double is this straight half double right here. I'm going to single crochet into there. The next side half double is this one right here, right underneath this alpine stitch. So there is 1, and then there is 2. And that's it. We're going to keep doing this, making our way all the way around. Slip stitch into this chain 1 space, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back. We have just single crocheted all the way around our collar, and now we're going to get started on our hood. The first thing we're going to want to do is insert our stitch markers right where we want it to start, and for me it's going to be right about where my collarbone is, and we just want to make sure that it's even on both sides. Now once we have that, making sure that our cable is faced up towards us and the collar is away from us, we're going to insert our hook into the left stitch marker stitch. So insert your yarn onto your hook from there, pull through, and do a chain up of 2. Now from here we're going to do 7 half double crochets and then an increase into the 8th. So start with a yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch with a half double crochet. I'll meet you guys back when I have a total of 7. Now once when I have my 7 half double crochets, I'm going to increase into that next stitch. So just put 2 half double crochets into there. So there's 1, and then there's 2. We're going to keep repeating the sequence, making our way all the way over to our next stitch marker. So 7 half double crochet, and then increase of 2 into the 8th. I'll meet you guys back once we reach this stitch marker. Now that we have made our way all the way around with our first half double crochet row where we did an increase into every 8th stitch, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, making our way back around. So chain 2, and I'll meet you guys back at the end of this row so we can get started on our alpine stitches. Alright, so now that we are done with our row number 2, we're going to get started on our alpine stitch section. We've done it a bunch, so I know you guys already know how to do it, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. Getting started on our 3rd row, all we're going to do is chain 2, insert your first front post double crochet into the first half double crochet from row number 1, skip 1 stitch, and then half double crochet into the next. Keep alternating like that, going all the way around. When we reach the end of that row, do a chain 2, flip our work, and then half double crochet on back. Getting started on our next alpine row, or our row number 5, start with a half double crochet, and then front post double crochet, and then work your way all the way down. Just remember that if you guys end in a front post double crochet row, it will be combined with a half double crochet. But keep alternating between those rows, and I'll meet you guys back once when our hood reaches the crown of our head, and then we can get started on the middle portion of our hood. Alright, so I have made my way all the way up with my Alpine stitch rows, and now I'm ready to get started on the middle section. But right before we get started, I have a total of 34 rows, and the total height is 11 inches or 28 centimeters. So right before we get started on the middle section of our hood, we're going to need to insert our stitch markers right where we want the width of our hood to be, because this is going to be our corners. From both edges, they need to be the same number and in multiples of 3. So from this edge into where I have my stitch marker, I have 21 stitches, and then the same along this end. Now I'm going to flip my work over, making sure that we're looking at our Alpine stitch section, and then we can get started. So now that our hood is flipped over, taking a look at the right stitch marker, we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that is right next to the stitch marker, going towards the outer corner. Insert your hook, insert your yarn, pull through, and now we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet, and then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch right after our stitch marker. So we're skipping over this stitch. So insert your hook into here with 1 half double crochet. And then from here, we're going to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch until we reach our next stitch marker. Now that we have put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, we are right at our stitch marker. So now we're going to slip stitch into that stitch right after our stitch marker stitch. So skip over this one and slip stitch into that next stitch. And once we have that, we're going to work our way up to the next row and do another half double crochet row. So slip stitch just up 1 stitch and flip our work. And now that our work is flipped, we're going to make our way down, putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Alright, we have half double crocheted back down. We're going to slip stitch into that next stitch to close off this row, and now we're going to get started with our Alpine stitch section. We've done this a million times, so I'm just going to get this row started with you guys and let you guys move on from there. So starting our Alpine stitch rows, we're going to slip stitch up 1, slip stitch up 2 stitches, and flip our work. Now from here, working into our first half double crochet row, we're going to start with a front post double. So we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that first half double crochet, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, yarn over for a half double crochet, skip 1 stitch, and then half double crochet. Now we're going to continue with our Alpine stitch row, making our way all the way down. Connecting it into the base, we're going to slip stitch into that second stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch up 1 stitch, flip our work, and then half double crochet back down. And getting started on our next Alpine stitch row, since we started this one off with a front post double, we're going to start that one off with a half double, and then we're just going to repeat until we don't have any more stitches left. I'll meet you guys back once we reach that point, right after a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so I have just finished up going in with my middle portion for our hood. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. And now, just to finish this off, we're going to single crochet around our hood to clean it up. So we're going to start by inserting our hook into the stitch that's right next to our hood, working into our collar. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and working our way all the way up and over. We're going to be alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side half double crochet row. So let's do the first one. Inserting your hook into that first side half double crochet, you're going to do 1 single crochet. Into your next row, which is this one right here, insert with 2. So there's 1 and there's 2. And keep doing this, making our way all the way up and around. Slip stitch it into that next stitch into the base, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, so my single crochet row along my hood is all finished, and we're now going to single crochet along the sleeves, which is going to be done pretty much the same way. So I'm just going to show you guys where we're going to insert our hook. We're going to start by inserting our hook into any one of our bottom stitches right here. Insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and then we're going to do the same thing that we did for the hood. So alternate between 1 to 2 single crochet into every side half double, do a chain up of 1 and cut once when we have made our way all the way around, and then do the same thing that we did here on the other side. So we just finished up single crocheting around both of our sleeves, and now to close this up, we're ready to get started on our bottom band, which is just going to be a single crochet row. So we're going to insert our hook into any one of these bottom stitches, insert our yarn onto our hook, and then into each of these stitches, we're going to put 1 single crochet into each of those. And then when it comes to the side slip stitch rows, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into each. So I started my bottom band over here just to show you guys how we're going to work into our side slip stitch rows. So let's find our first one. This is my first side slip stitch row right here. I'm going to insert my hook into that top loop, and then I'm going to single crochet. There's my first one. Let's do the next one. My next side slip stitch row is this divot right here. I'm going to find that top loop and single crochet. Let's do this again. My next side slip stitch row is this raised row. So I'll find that top loop, single crochet, and this is my next side slip stitch, which is this divot. So insert and then single crochet. And we're going to keep doing this, making our way all the way around. Slip stitch into that chain 1 space, do a chain up 1 and cut, and then I will meet you guys back. Alright, we have just single crocheted around pretty much everything, and we are actually all done. The last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and please check us out on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. All of those links are down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!